Last September, Apple introduced the Apple Watch Ultra, and this was the first big redesign we had really ever gotten out of the Apple Watch. And for me, it seemed like on paper it was everything I could have wanted from an Apple Watch. The better battery life, the bigger screen, and the much more durable design. So now that I've been using it pretty much daily for the last 8 months, has it lived up to my expectations, and is it worth getting? Let's dive in and talk about it. So diving right into the video, we're going to start with the battery life. And battery life on the Apple Watch for me had never really been a big issue until I started working out way more. And towards the middle to end of last year, I started going to the gym daily for 30 minutes to an hour. And that's where my Apple Watch Series 7 that I had been using at the time really started to struggle with battery life. And the funny part for me is that the Series 7 was struggling, and that was still fairly new. The only reason I had it was because I made an AppleCare claim during the pandemic with my Series 5, and there was a shortage where they couldn't get me a Series 5, so they just bumped me up to the 7. That was kind of nice, but even it was struggling with battery life, and there is nothing more frustrating than being midway through a workout and looking down at your watch and realizing that it has just died. And yes, it taps you to put it into low power mode, but that low power mode doesn't track fitness, so I usually ignore it, and, well, it would die mid-workout, and I would lose all of the information past when it died. So frustrating. So then moving to the Apple Watch Ultra, I have had 0 issues with battery life. In fact, I could probably count on 1, maybe 2 hands how many times it's actually notified me of low battery. And that's just because I use it for so long that I forget that it even needs to be charged until it reminds me, or I look down and go, oh, that says 20%. I should probably charge it. Now, Apple's website claims that this Apple Watch will get 36 hours of battery life with normal use and 60 on low power mode. Now, I've never actually used it in low power mode, and I've also never used their normal use statistic, which I assume doesn't include a workout in it. I will use the fitness app at least once every single day, so with that in mind, I will usually get about 2 days worth of battery life, and I'll end the day on the second day at about 20% battery life. I'll throw it on the charger, let it charge up, and then wear it again to go to bed and get my sleep tracking. So if that metric helps, there you go. 1 workout each day, still 2 days of battery life, usually about 20% by around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night on the second day. For me, the battery life on the Apple Watch Ultra is a nice balance because the Apple Watch Ultra is much beefier than something like the thinner designs of the Apple Watch Series 8, but it does get better battery life. On the other hand, it doesn't get the same crazy 5-day battery life of the high-end Fitbits, but it is also more capable than those high-end Fitbits. So if you're looking for an Apple Watch or any smartwatch that has a decent balance of good battery life while keeping a ton of functionality, I think that this strikes a very good balance for you. Now, this next thing, for me, was perfect, but for a lot of people might not quite be something that they're into, and that's the display size. Yeah, this is the largest Apple Watch display period. It's extremely bright, which is good. It's very easy to see outdoors. You have a flat display, but it is a 49mm display. That's pretty big. Like, I used to actually wear a diving watch, and that diving watch is only 3mm bigger than this Apple Watch. This thing is big. Now, for my wrist size, I think it works pretty well, and I love the flat display, the brightness, all the benefits you get from this bigger, brighter display, for me, are perfect. But for somebody like my mom, who wears a 40mm Apple Watch on a daily basis, she really likes the battery life and the ruggedization of this watch, but the display and overall size of the watch is just a bit too big. My recommendation for the Apple Watch Ultra when it comes to size, and actually my recommendation for any Apple Watch or band, is to go somewhere where you actually have the opportunity to physically take a look at it if you have that option, either your local Best Buy or something like a direct Apple store if you're fortunate enough to be close to one of them. Something like that would be a big benefit for you because it would allow you to try this on and actually give you a chance to say, this is perfect or this is too big. Like I said, for me though, this Apple Watch screen is perfect. I love the fact that it is super easy to see outdoors. I love the fact that it is just so big. You can do so much more on this display. So if you feel as though you fall under the category of needing a bigger watch, or you're all right with wearing a big watch even if your wrists aren't that big, then yeah, this display size has been great. I honestly kind of hope that they take something like this and maybe make a third size option for the standard Apple Watch so that some people who want the bigger display but maybe don't care so much for the rugged design could get something like that. But for now, if you want the biggest display, it's on the Ultra, and honestly, It's worth it in my opinion. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the design and durability, and I'm going to combine those two together because it's kind of hard to talk about either of them without bringing up the other, because the durability and the design pretty much go hand in hand. It wouldn't be as durable as it is without the design, and the design is why it is that durable. So we're just going to talk about both in one shot. Let's do it. So, like I mentioned at the start, the design of this watch is a massive departure from the regular Apple Watch look. It's very squared off, very boxy, very ruggedized. You have things like the raised cover for the actual crown on the watch. You have the titanium that goes all the way up around the edges of the display, and this raised edge actually holds the antenna for the cellular function that I don't use at all. Covering the display we just talked about is a sapphire lens, which has been extremely durable, and on the back of the watch is a ceramic backplate with screws that are kind of cool to look at, but also kind of useless because not only do you have to undo those screws, but you then have to break the adhesive seal for the back, which ruins the water resistance, which, by the way, this is water resistant up to 100 meters. That 100-meter rating I bring up just because it blows my mind that this is a smartwatch that can go that deep when the dive watch I used to have could go 200 meters further than this. That's still a lot, but the fact that this can actually go 100 is insane for a piece of electronic equipment. Anyway, the durability itself and the design have both been put to the test quite a bit in my hands. When it comes to actually running, my go-to for the band has been the Trail Loop. It's a much thinner, lighter loop. This was the one I had actually wanted to get from the start, but it was back-ordered at the time that I had bought it. But I finally got my hands on one. It's pretty much the one I wear almost all the time. I did finally find a fitment that works well for the Alpine Loop, which, if you remember in my last video, if you don't remember, you can check it out over there. I complained about the fitment of that one a little bit, and it was because I was right within a size of 2 loops, so it didn't quite work. It was either too tight or too loose. I lost a bit of weight, and so now it's perfectly fine in the loop further that was originally too tight, but yeah, just keep that in mind. The Alpine Loop can be a little pickier. This one is Velcro, so it allows for pretty much infinite adjustability. On the topic of the water resistance, I do also have the Dive Band, and I mentioned in my previous video that I linked just a minute ago that the loop itself is cool, but it has holes in it that hold water, and I mentioned that when I wore it in the shower it held water. Somebody left a comment saying, well, don't wear it in the shower. The point is that if you at all submerge that band, it holds water. Kind of an odd choice in design, but whatever. That's just what it does. I haven't, unfortunately, got a chance to really go swimming with this watch yet. I've maybe taken it underwater once when I first got it because it was still kind of summer. But since then, it's been the winter, so I kind of tested it out with cold weather, even though the weather that we got here was nowhere close to the extremes that these watches can handle. Like, I think the coldest weather we saw here where I live during the winter was about -7 degrees Celsius, which is roughly about 18 degrees Fahrenheit. And this watch can go as far as -22 degrees Celsius, so I think we're all right. Also, we never see 55 degrees Celsius here in the summer, so I think it'll still be okay. For more realistic scenarios, things that I would have taken my Apple Watch Series 7 off for were things that I kept this watch on for. Things like changing the oil in my car or working in tight spaces in my car where it could get rubbed or scratched or scraped against something metal. I've kept it on, and the titanium, it looks as good as the day I took it out of the box. There isn't a single scratch on the sapphire watch face, and really the only casualty for the work that I've done with cars and other things is the bands. And really the only band that suffered the most, unfortunately, was my favorite one, the Trail Loop. The orange pull tab that they put on there is now permanently stained. But aside from that, I have beat the snot out of this watch to levels that aren't crazy, but things that I would have definitely not wanted to wear a regular Apple Watch for, and this thing has taken it like a champ. Of course, when I wear it to the gym, it holds up just fine. I will say it took a little bit of getting used to with it being a touch heavier than the Apple Watch Series 7 I was coming from, but even then, it wasn't a noticeable difference because, again, titanium is durable, but it is very light. I've worn the stainless steel Apple Watch before, and that is much heavier than this while being much smaller. So the titanium build is great. The actual ridge built up around the sapphire display definitely helps and doesn't actually seem to show any marks that it was protecting the display, meaning that even when it takes a wallop, it doesn't even really care. Something else I love is the fact that even though this watch is bigger than the previous Apple Watches, it can still handle 44 and 42 millimeter watch bands. My regular sleeping watch band that's more comfortable for wearing when I use it for sleep tracking is a traditional Velcro Apple Watch band. And man, it fits like no problem at all. It's not as flush to the edges as something like the ones that Apple made for this watch particularly, but it doesn't matter. It still fits and it works perfectly. The only quirk that I've really discovered with this Apple Watch, and it's something that was actually very noticeable for multiple recording sessions that I would have to cut sections out of, or even just hanging out with family, is that Siri seems to really pick up on me talking to her on the watch, even when I wasn't intending to actually say anything to her. I've had whole conversations with family where I'll be talking, and I'll look down at my watch and see that the whole conversation was transcribed onto the watch face, and then Siri just goes, "Sorry, I don't know how to help with that," even though I wasn't asking for help with anything. It's the only real quirk that I've run into with this, and I feel like that might be just because of the extra microphones on it for noise cancellation, also being more sensitive for picking up voices, but yeah, it's the only weird thing. But anyway, getting back to the design, I think that this Apple Watch is definitely the best designed Apple Watch we've had in a long time. Mainly because Apple kind of nailed the design of the regular Apple Watch and have just been iterating on it since then. And it's about time we actually got a genuinely new design with the Apple Watch. And I think they nailed it, especially considering it just kind of seems like they took all of the durability buzzwords that you would want from a smartwatch and just threw them at the wall to see what stuck. I love it. And for the price, it's definitely a bit of a steep price, but when you look at other watches that would be competing with this, or rather the watches that this would be competing with, the price isn't actually that insane. You've got Garmin's with similar materials, similar functionality, and not as deeply integrated of a feature set as the Apple Watch, and they run about the same price. So if you are more inclined to go with something like an Apple Watch as your smartwatch, but you don't want to go with something thin and light, you're worried about the durability, you want something that just lasts for days, has a really nice, big, clear display for outdoor use, and can take a beating and not even care, I definitely think this Apple Watch is worth it. And even 8 months on since I got mine, I think that this has been one of the best watches I've ever purchased. Not Apple Watches, watches. But those are my thoughts on the Apple Watch Ultra. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like. If you really liked it, maybe subscribe. I got more content like this in the pipeline. We got a whole lot of stuff coming out. I'm really excited for you all to see it. Aside from that, make sure to leave some comments letting me know what you all think about the video. I also sell shirts. You can check those out at the link down below. It's Friday, so make sure to go and check out the Discord. Drop some memes in the memes channel on the Discord because it'll be Funny Friday live streaming at 8 p.m. EST. Hope to see you all there. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.